President, please be seated. The court is now in session. Mrs. Kalbati, the greffier, could you report the attendance of the parties and individuals to the proceeding today? Sir Kalbati, Mr. President, all parties to the proceeding are present except the accused Insari, who is absent due to his health issue. However, the accused waived his rights to hear the testimony of TCW 91. The letter of waiver has been submitted to the greffier. Atul Wakan, the international lawyer for Kirsampon, is absent due to personal affair, and Mrs. Francois Guthrie, the civil party lawyer who has already been recognized by the Bar Association of Cambodia, has yet to be recognized by the trial chamber. As for the witness TCW 91, who is to testify today, is waiting in the room to be called by the chamber. The witness confirms to his best knowledge he has no relation by blood or by law to any of the three accused or any of the civil parties who have been recognized in this case. The witness already took an oath this morning. The duty counsel is saying ready. President, thank you. In today's proceeding, the chamber noticed one of the civil party lawyers who has not yet recognized by the trial chamber, and the chamber, in pursuant to the applicable internal rule, will initiate the process of recognition of the civil party lawyer. Pursuant to Rule 22-A of the internal rules, the chamber would like to invite Mr. Pek Ong, the civil party lead co-lawyer, to stand up and request for the recognition of this international civil party lawyer, as he has not yet been recognized by the trial chamber. Pek Ong. Good morning, Mr. President, your honors and parties to the proceeding and everyone. Behind me is Mrs. Francois Guthrie. She is French and she is from the Advocate Without a Border. She is from the Bar Association of Courage from France. And in Cambodia, she has been recognized by the Bar Association of Cambodia. She also took an oath before the Court of Appeal of Cambodia in 2009. For that reason, I request the recognition by the trial chamber so that they can defend the interests of the civil parties before this chamber. I'm grateful, Your Honor. President, thank you. Mrs. Francois Gaudry, please stand. Ms. Francois Gaudry, you are hereby recognized by the trial chamber as a lawyer for civil parties for the purpose of the proceedings before this chamber. And based on that recognition, you enjoy the same rights and privileges as those of the civil party lawyers. Please be seated. The Chamber would like to inform the parties and the general public that during the last few days, the trial chamber postponed the proceeding in hearing the testimony for a total of 5 days. That is 2 weeks, 2 days from last week, and 3 days within this week. The reason is that the accused Ieng has a health issue that he has to be treated in the hospital at the emergency unit at the Khmer Soviet Friendship Hospital since last Friday. So far, he's still being treated at that hospital. And the chamber also schedules to hear the witness TCW 307 last week, who was summoned by the trial chamber as a reserve witness since the first week of September and the subsequent weeks. However, due to the clear position by the accused Ieng not to waive his right to hear the testimony of that witness TCW 307, the chamber could not hear the testimony as a result. And today the trial chamber will hear the testimony of the witness TCW 91. Although Ieng is still being treated at the hospital, as the chamber is seized of the letter of waiver of his presence in the hearing of that witness TCW 91 by Ieng dated 18 September 2012 through his counsel. The document is E11/87.1. The chamber would like to add that besides the witness TCW 91, who is waived by Mr. Ieng to hear his testimony, Ieng also requests to waive his direct presence through some other witnesses and civil party, namely TCW 475. And for that reason, that witness may be heard next week, starting from Tuesday, the 25th September, without the presence of Ieng if he is unable to do so. So this is for your information. And before I invite the witness TCW 91 to the courtroom, the chamber would like to inquire with the counsel for Ieng regarding the waiver of the right of your client to hear the witness TCW 91, as dated in the letter on 18 September 2012, that is Tuesday. Is there any change to that condition or status? Good morning, Mr. President, Your Honors, the co-prosecutors, colleagues, and everyone in and around the courtroom. Mr. Ieng attended the hearing in order to expedite the proceeding before this chamber, and although he is being treated at the Khmer Soviet Friendship Hospital, and as the President indicated, he waives his direct presence or his remote presence to hear some witnesses, including TCW 91. However, for these witnesses, in a circumstance where the testimony is different from what is already in the case file, or where the testimony incriminates my client, then we wish that his waiver is null and void and await his direct presence to hear that witness. Thank you. President, thank you. Court officer, could you invite the witness TCW 91 into the courtroom? Defense counsel, you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I would first of all like to say that I'm very happy to be back. I haven't been back in the courtroom since the recess for the summer. I had one small request for clarification, and maybe I can do that, make that request while we're waiting for the witness to arrive. During my absence, I checked the website of the court on a regular basis, and I did so last week as well, and I noticed that the biography of the president of this court, Nil Non, has been redacted recently. The reference to the president's biography, the many publications in the field of criminal law, has been taken out of the biography. It's not there anymore, while it used to be there until recently. This is surprising, as I have asked for this list of publications on various occasions in the past. I asked for this list on the 24th of April, on the 13th of June, and also on the 18th of June in court, and also in writing to the senior legal officer of this court. And I've never received an answer. I'm still curious, more than ever, to know why the biography of the president of this court was redacted, and why we were never informed about the reasons why the reference to the many publications in the field of international or criminal law has been deleted. Does this mean, we would like to know, does this mean President Nil Non has not published many publications in the field of criminal law, which I am beginning to suspect? And if this is the case, all this suggests a creative approach to facts unbefitting a judge or a trial chamber, which is supposed to independently and vigorously pursue the truth. So we would like to have a clarification as to why the biography of the president of this chamber has been changed, and why the reference to the many publications in the field of criminal law has been deleted without informing us about the reasons why. Thank you.
President, thank you, Defense Counsel, for your notice regarding my personal biography. And I'd like to state that this is a separate issue, and it's a minor issue related to my biography. Let me say that I am not the one who made many publications. I made some publications for the purpose of internal use of some of the national courts and at the school for judges, and they are summary reports. However, regarding the consultation with some lawyers, they suggested that those articles or publications shall be included in my biography. Those articles mainly dealt with the criminal aspect of the law on the sentencing issues, for instance, so that the articles can be used at the school of judges. And many of those students are interested in those articles while I was teaching at that school. And I wrote many articles regarding the rules for the administration of the domestic courts. It does not mean I am the sole author. It means that I have experience in that area at the level of at the national level. And as I observe that here, the standard of writing is much higher, in particular in reference to the footnotes, which is an international standard, is much higher than my writing or article. And based on that, I consulted with the legal officers as that there could be controversy coming out of the inclusion of that portion in my biography, because such a writing or article shall not be included in the biography as in compared to some other biographies before the ECCC. And that is all. And if you would like to find all those articles or publications, you can go to the school for judges, as I left copies there while I was teaching there and sharing experience there regarding the rules for sentencing according to the Cambodian law during the transitional period. As well as the regulations regarding the judicial administration during the transitional period before the enactment of the Code of Criminal Procedure or the Code of the Civil Procedure. And let me say that you can't find those articles. I am not the one who writes books and sells books as a profession, but those articles are available. Court officer, could you invite the witness into the courtroom? My response is more than sufficient for you regarding the matter you raised. And if you are not satisfied, you can do so further according to the applicable rule and procedure before this ECCC.
សូមលោក Michael
and Mr. Michael Passmont, if you still have issues regarding this matter, you can make it in writing to respond to my statement just then, because so far there has been some controversies regarding oral and written submissions versus oral and written ruling or response. And we already set the schedule that this morning the floor will be given to one side of the court, and for the afternoon session, it will be allocated to the other side of the court, and I will not allow the time to be debated on other issues which was not as part of the scheduling for today's proceeding. President, good morning, Mr. Chiesai. Is Chiesai your correct name? Response. Good morning, Mr. President. My name is Chiesai. Question. Besides Chiesai, do you have any other names or alias? Please wait, Mr. Chiesai, until you see the red light on your microphone. You will see the red light on the head of the microphone and on the console, and then you can start to speak, as 3 languages are used in this court. Mr. Chiesai, how old are you? Response. I am 59 years old. Question. Where is your current address? Response. My address is at Klong Village, Ottawa, Commune, Pailan District, Pailan City. Question. What is your current occupation? Response. I am a farmer. Question. What is your father's name? Response. His name is Cao Jie. Question. And your mother's name? Response. Her name is Jie Peng. Question. What is your wife's name? Response. Her name is Sao Sarun. Question. How many children do you have? Response. I have 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. Question. What is your level of education? Response. I studied literature at a school in a pagoda in year 12 in the old education system, and I ordained for 1 year. Question. Rather, year 10 in the old system. Question. Can you read and write? Response. I can read and write. That is the Khmer characters. Thank you. Mr. Chiesai, as reported by the greffier, to your best knowledge, you have no relation by blood or by law to any of the accused or the civil parties in this case. The 3 accused are Noon Chia, Ieng Sari, and Khieu Sampon. Is that information correct? Response. I have no relation to any of the 3 accused. Also, as reported by the greffier, you already took an oath before you entered this courtroom. Is that correct? Response. Yes, I took an oath before I came into this courtroom. President, we would like to inform you of your right and obligation for the proceeding before this chamber. As a witness, Mr. Chiesai, for the proceeding before this chamber, you may refuse to respond to any question which may incriminate yourself. That is the right against self-incrimination. It means if you believe your response may put you in a position to be prosecuted, and as a witness before this chamber, you must respond to questions put to you by the bench or by any other parties, except in the case where your response to the question or your comment could incriminate yourself. And as a witness, you must tell the truth that you have heard, have experienced, or have remembered, or what you came across or observed directly in regards to any event in the question put to you by the check bench or by any of the parties. Do you understand that? Response. Yes, I do. Thank you. Mr. Chiesai, were you ever interviewed by the investigators of the Office of the Co-Investigating Judges? If so, when and where, and how many times, if you can recall that? Response. It was conducted at my house, but I cannot recall the rest. But surely I was interviewed. Question. How many times were you interviewed? Response. They came to interview me for one time. But they came to meet me for 2 or 3 times, but they were different people. Question. Before you enter the courtroom, have you seen or read that record of interview that you gave to the investigators of the Office of the Co-Investigating Judges in order to refresh your memory? Response. Mr. President, let me apologize. I tend to forget quite a lot. My memory is not that great.
The President, have you read the records of your interviews? Response. Yes, I have, but my memory doesn't serve me very well, and I have to admit this. The President, according to your best recollection, can you tell the Chamber, after reading your record of interviews, whether the records are consistent with the accounts you gave before the investigators or not? Because you say that you gave these interviews at your home before. Response. Yes, indeed, Mr. President. The accounts are consistent to what I gave before the co-investigators at my home. The President, thank you. For the co-prosecution, during the cross-examination, the Chamber will allocate the time for the prosecution to put questions to the witness before the other parties to the proceeding. And please be informed that both the prosecution and lead co-lawyers for the civil party will be allocated the whole morning to put questions to the witness. For the afternoon sessions, time will be solely allocated to the three defense counsels to pose the questions to the witness. Mr. Co-prosecutors and lead co-lawyers would also be asked to advise the Chamber on how the time is divided among themselves so that the Chamber is well informed. You may now proceed.
Mr. President, Your Honours, good morning. The time will be allocated such that the lead co-lawyers anticipate, for the civil parties, anticipate that their questioning will only occupy about 10 or 15 minutes of this morning. I hope that helps.
The President, yes, it does. We would like to hear also from the civil parties, councils. Mr. Pek-ang, Mr. President and Your Honours, Mrs. Binye will be allocated the time to put questions, and she may need about 20 to 30 minutes for that. The President, thank you. Now, Co-Prosecutor, you may now proceed. Mr. Wayne Hort. Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, Your Honours. And good morning, Mr. Jia Sai. I am from the Office of Co-Prosecutors. Before putting the questions, may I wish to remind you on a few points. You just stated before the Chamber that your memory is not very good for the time being, but I wish to read the document under ERN 0020 40 84 through 85 in Khmer, ERN in English 0076 63 37 through 38. French ERN numbers 00524341. My apologies. In French 00524341 through 42. In that document, you indicated that in the previous interviews, you said you worked at K-12, which was part of Office 870, and you worked at the auto repair unit from 1975 all the way to the time when the Vietnamese came in 1979, and you was tasked with repairing cars and also drove trucks to transport medics and soldiers. And you said that the head of K-12 was Tamil. May I ask whether you know the full name of Tamil? Is he Sang Krun? Response. I wish to respond to your question. I worked with him, and I only know he was Tamil. I don't know his full name. He was supervising a unit, auto repair unit, and that's the only name I know of him. Question. You said Tamil was removed or disappeared in 1978. Do you know what happened to him after his disappearance? Response. Although I used to live with him, I did not know what he did wrong. I just learned that he disappeared, and that's all. Question. Who was the deputy head or chairperson of K-12? Response. Yes, I know that person by the name of Wei. I remember his name, although not very clearly, because it was more than 40 years ago when I worked with him. Question. You said that K-12 was part of Office 870 under supervision of Pang, or Pang rather. What happened to Pang? Do you know about this? Response. Pang was known to me because he worked at K-12 and also Office 870, but he then disappeared. Question. I may wish to also seek a clarification from you whether Pang had disappeared before Mill disappeared. Response. Mr. President, I don't remember concerning disappearance. I know for sure that these people disappeared, but I don't know who disappeared first and who disappeared later. It was more than 40 years ago. Question. Who was Pang's successor at Office 870? Response. At that time, I'm not sure, but there was a person by the name of Lin who belonged to a tribe or ethnic minority. Question. Can you tell the court if you remember where K-12 was located? Response. If you come all the way from Chamkamon, then you would pass a hospital or Chinese hospital, and that location would be on the left-hand side just across from the gas station. And K-12 also had its branch office, which is an office for auto repair. Question. How many people were employed at that K-12? Response. So far as I remember, there were two groups of people in two sections. I was tasked with repairing the trucks and driving or transporting people, and there were about 30 people in my unit. Question. I would like to go back a little bit by putting a few more questions. As a cadre at K-12, what information did they give you after the disappearance of Pang? Response. Frankly speaking, I was not a cadre. My position at that time was nothing but a worker. I was a person who was tasked with repairing the cars. If I were the cadre, I could have been executed or disappeared already. Question. When Mil disappeared and when Pang disappeared, what kind of information were you told about them, and who could have been the person who told you about this? Response. At that time, no one could come to tell us about the disappearance of anyone. We could just learn from one another informally because we didn't see them anymore. Question. Can you also tell the court, please, whether K-12 had already been established when you arrived, or you were part of the founder of K-12? Response. K-12 office had already been established when I came to work there. Question. With regard to other cadres who worked at K-12, where did they come from? Response. The majority of them came from the North Zone and the East Zone. Question. I would like to proceed to a more specific question to you. Was a K-12 for serving or providing service to Office 870 alone? Response. K-12 was a part of auto repair unit for Office 870, I can say, because I used to see Pang coming to that unit talking or working with Tamil. Question. Earlier on, you said that there were people employed at that unit. Do you know these people very well? Response. I'm afraid I don't. At that time, they were younger than I was, and they were young people, and people went to different places, and I don't remember them very well. And I remember only two people, Mil and Vui, who one was the head and one was the deputy. Question. You said that 30 people worked in your unit. My question is, did all the 30 people in the unit remain intact, or some of them disappeared before 1979? Response. The majority of the workers at the auto repair unit were removed. Question. Do you know where they could have been removed to? Response. No, I don't. But I heard from others that some of them were removed to the train repair unit and some would be sent to the production unit. Question. Among the 30 people or workers, did you join the group, for example, during meal times and other discussions and meetings? Response. During that time, there was no big problem in my unit. After work, we could come and sit down and chit-chatted. Question. You were talking about chit-chatting. Were you chit-chatting about the progress of work or about other topics? Response. It depends. Sometimes we discussed about the progress of work, how we could repair the cars more quickly. Sometimes we discussed about foods and other things. Question. I would like to ask you more specific questions concerning the 30 people who worked at the auto repair unit. How many of whom were drivers and how many of whom were workers to repair the cars? Response. For these 30 people, I only refer to the auto repair section, but for the K-12, there could have been more people than that. But at the auto repair section, I mean trucks repair section, there were only 30 people. Question. You talk about trucks and cars. Who were in charge of transporting cadres to meetings? What kind of vehicle would be used to carry these people back and forth? Response. Cadres of a lower level would be transported by a normal vehicle. If there were a lot of people, then they would take a bus. And people did not care what kind of transportation used to accommodate them. Question. You said that cadres didn't care about whether they would be transported in a small or big vehicle. But what kind of meetings were they transported to? Response. I, as a subordinate, would not be able to understand the content of the meeting or what could have been discussed in the meeting of the cadres. Question. You said that you would not be able to know what happened in the meetings or about the meetings, but did you ever transport any of them to any meeting? Response. Apart from repairing the cars or vehicles, I would be asked on some rare occasions to transport some workers, not cadres. I was sometime asked to transport garbage to be dumped at the dump sites. Question. Do you know who would be in the guard units for the senior leaders? Response. These guards, now we could refer them as the bodyguards. I think I do not really remember knowing any one of them because I was so much attached to the auto repair unit, and I focused more on my work rather than wishing to know more about the others. Question. Were you ever be promoted, or were you ever promoted? Response. At that time, I was nowhere closer to the rank of a cadre. I was merely a member, a person to be used by others. So I did not hold any position as a cadre of the regime. Question. I would like to ask you a few more questions concerning Office 870. In your interviews, you say that 870 was in charge of supervising all the K offices, and that this office was supervised by the senior leaders. Document 00204084 in Khmer, English ERN 00766338, French ERN 00524342. With regard to this document, I would like to ask you, who else were in charge of Office 870 apart from Pol Pot? Response. Office 870 was supervised by some people, but I don't know them other than Pol Pot. The thing I am sure is that since Pol Pot was the top leader, he could have been the one who was also in charge of 870, but I never obtained any precise information to support this argument. The President, counsel for Mr. Ingsari, you may now proceed. Mr. Ang Uddam. Thank you, Mr. President. I am not sure how well this witness is informed on responding to questions, because he used or he in his testimony used the terms as not sure, not clear. May witness be advised to be more precise when giving testimony, because by doing so it can save some objections from defense counsels. The President. Thank you, counsel. The chamber will rule on this finally. If witness gives testimonies that are not clear, then the chamber will also decide on the quality of such testimonies. But now, before us, it is up to counsel or party who is on his feet to put questions to the witness to ensure that the testimonies are straightforward and clear, and the only party who is putting questions to the witness would be in the best position to get the best answers. And for the chamber, it is difficult for the president to really tell witness to be more precise than that, because it doesn't even, or it is not written in the Criminal Code of Procedure about this. Prosecutor: thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Witness, you said that Pang was in charge of 870. Did you see Pang very often? Response: Mr. Pang sometimes came to the place to see leaders, and I would see him, but he did not go there very often. He came there only occasionally.
Question: on what occasion that you saw Pong? It means that while you were driving, or under what circumstances you saw him? Response: I did not meet him at office 870, and I went to office 870. I heard about it while I was at K12. Pong came to inspect the work occasionally, and that was the time that I saw him. I never went and see him at office 870. Question: if the vehicle of the leaders broke down, where would they be repaired? President: witness, please wait. Defense counsel, you may proceed. Counsel: thank you, Mr. President. The question by the prosecution is of no use in ascertaining the truth, as the question incorporates the word if. And of course, this court cannot use a response to that kind of question as an evidence. President: thank you. Witness, you do not need to respond to any of the speculative kind of question. Prosecution: thank you, Mr. President. I'll move on. Question: who authorized the use of vehicles to transport important visitors or guests through and from the airport? Response: could you please repeat your question, as it's not clear to me? President: that is a correct procedure, Mr. Witness. If you are unclear, then you ask the questioner to repeat the question. As if you think the question is unclear, then you do not need to just plainly respond. You need to understand the question first before you respond. Otherwise, you may ask the questioner to repeat the question. As for the national prosecutor, please rephrase your question so that it can be understood by the witness. And the witness already informed us of the limited level of education during the old regime and that he ordained for 1 year. And if he studied during the times that he worked, it would be in a different circumstance. So please try to simplify your question so that the witness can understand it and respond appropriately. Thank you, Mr. President. Let me repeat my question, Mr. Witness. When foreigners or representative of a foreign country came to visit Cambodia or leaving Cambodia through the airport, which K office that had the authority for the authorization of using vehicle to transport those visitors back and from the airport? Response. As for the foreign visitors coming in and going out of Cambodia, K-12 had the duty to transport them. However, that would fall under the car unit. I was at the truck unit, so I did not have this knowledge. Please turn on the microphone. President, the prosecutor, could you switch on your microphone when you speak? Prosecutor, thank you, Mr. President. Witness, I'd like to ask you another question. Which K office provided the transport to carry people from K1 to K3? Response. I cannot recall that. As I said repeatedly, my memory does not serve me well. I have been sick a lot since 1979, and secondly, I cannot recall it yet well, so I declined to respond to this question. Question. Can you recall which K office had the responsibility to transport leaders to the meeting venues or to where they make their presentations? Response. I am unclear as to what to respond to this question. I do not really understand the question well. The question is that which office, and as you said, you were at K-12, and there were cars and buses to transport guests and people, and the question is, during the transportation of leaders to the meeting venues or to where they would make their presentation, who would transport them? Response. As I stated repeatedly, I did not know much about the transportation of those leaders. My main duty was different. and I could not know the details of such a transportation of the leaders to this or that location. Thank you, witness. I have no more questions for you, but I'd like to give the floor to my international colleague to put a question to you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. Chair, can I please just pick up on the parts of K-12? You worked, you've said, in the auto repair unit, and you've mentioned that there was another part of K-12. What did you call the other part?
But
Office K-12 had different sections designated with the initial K as well. But K-12 was the auto repair, K-4 that's for food, and K-6 was the medical part. So each designated K section had their respective work and assignment.
Let me put, please, the question in a different way. You were responsible for the repair of vehicles. Was there another part of K-12 where vehicles, in other words, cars and trucks, were located?
But
As I stated earlier, at K-12 office, there were sections with small cars for transporting guests, and they would have their own repair unit within that car section. As for the truck section, we would be responsible for carrying garbage or utilities or materials or food.
Can you help me on this? Was K-12 responsible at all for the transport of supplies, food, tools, matters of that kind, out of Phnom Penh to the provinces?
K-12 office had trucks transporting supplies to the provinces, which at the time they were known as zones. So materials were transported to cooperatives. I learned that through my work colleague, and as I stated, I work at the auto repair section, and I only transported around within the Phnom Penh vicinity, not at the zone.
You said in your OCIJ statement that your job, obviously you've mentioned this already, was to repair cars, but also to drive soldiers and medics within Phnom Penh. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Because at that time, my main duty was repairing vehicles, but sometimes when they needed drivers, then I would be asked to drive. For example, sometimes I was asked to drive medics to watch a movie. So I was used occasionally as a driver. And regarding the transportation of soldiers, it was before the liberation of Phnom Penh. At that time, I was still a driver trainee.
Do you know what S71 refers to?
Frankly speaking, you talk about S1. Mr. Hayham Kane, during the investigation, during the time that they made me, I was asked by him regarding that office. Personally, I never knew that office. I'm even not clear on the number of that office. Is S something, S21 or something? I never heard of that office during the time that I worked at the auto repair section.
During the time that you worked at the auto repair section, did you ever see Q Sampon?
I occasionally saw him because at that time his children stayed at K-12 office. Although I saw him, but I did not have any contact with him. He was a senior person. So I saw him come in and then he left. I dare not approach him, but I saw him there.
You've mentioned his children. What were they doing then at the K-12 office?
At that time, his children were young. They were children and they were looked after there. They were about 2 or 3 years old at the time.
What was Q Sampon doing at the K-12 office?
President, witness, please wait. Defense counsel, you may proceed. Kong Sam-on, thank you, Mr. President. I observed that the international prosecutor repeats the question again and again, and the witness already responded clearly to that question.
I haven't repeated the question again, Mr. President. I've asked what was Q Sampon doing at the office. I haven't asked that question before. The objections are unfounded in my respectful submission. Can I please proceed?
President, the objection is unfounded, and the witness is instructed to respond to the last question put to you by the prosecutor. And witness, if you cannot recall the last question, you can ask the prosecutor to repeat that. Prosecutor, you may continue your time. Please repeat your question. It is likely that the witness cannot recall it.
What was Q Sampon doing at the K-12 office?
K-12 office was a branch. He drove the car into the office, but I did not observe what he was doing there as I was working. My understanding is that his children were there, so he went to see his children. But I did not know the details of what he was doing there at the time. I was engaging in my work, and I would be blamed if I stop and just go and follow him and look at him. My main focus was on the completion of my assignment.
Was K-12 responsible for driving the senior leaders around?
I think that question has been asked already. My main task was auto repair, so I did not know about the transportation of senior leaders. My focus is on the repair job. Only those who did the actual transportation would know about that. I was a minor member within the team.
I want to move on, please, to the subject of political education. The ERNs that are relevant to this section are as follows. English 007 66336, Khmer 00204083, and French 007-66343. Now, you said, Mr. Chiasai, in your interview with the investigators, that you participated many times in political education at the Technological Institute and also at Boré Kaila. How many times did you attend, roughly?
But
That is correct. At that time, it is common that leaders educated the subordinates. Those uncles taught us politics. And as raised by those who came to interview me, during the political training, the main theme would be on working hard, on economization, on engaging in good work. And I remember that clearly. That was the main theme of their teaching. That is on economization and on working hard to build the country. And we were called to the training on occasional basis on these themes.
So how many times roughly were you called?
I cannot recall that. It's been so long ago. It's almost 40 years, and of course my memory does not serve me well, and I also have heart issues. But what I can say is that I did attend the study sessions, but I cannot recall how many times.
You said in your interview that it was Tribunal who appointed you to go on these courses. Was it always Tribunal who sent you, or was it ever anybody else?
It is clear the person who supervised a section was the one who authorized the study, the staff to go for the study session. And when we knew the place, we just gathered around and went there without having to be led there by the chairperson. It was usually at that Technical Institute or at Boré Kaila. So when each particular person was assigned to go, we would just gather ourselves and went there, as we knew the place already.
You mentioned that there were 30 people working with you in the auto repair unit. Now, would each of those persons also go and attend these courses?
Amongst the 30 staff, we took turn to attend the study session. So, for example, I would go this time, and next time somebody else would take place and go.
Now, thinking of the study sessions that you went on, how long was the longest study session that you attended?
បាទដូចខ្ញុំ
As I said earlier, it's been so long already, so I cannot recall how many days a study session lasted. I can only confirm that I attended the study sessions, but I cannot recall the specific duration of a study session. I'm so old now, and it's been since I was 20 years old.
Mr. Cheerside, just can you confirm this from your testimony, that some of the study sessions lasted days? In other words, more than one day. Is that correct?
The political study session lasted at least 3 days, never 1 day. But I could not say whether it lasted 6 days, 7 days, or 10 days, but at least it lasted 3 days. As for other normal study session, it would be an hour or two. It did not last that long, but it's different from the political study session.
I'd like you to concentrate, please, on the political study sessions. Now, at the start of these sessions, would somebody give an introductory talk to the people present?
At that time, those people who were referred to in the present time as MC or Master of Ceremony, although it might not be the appropriate term at the time, but yes, there were those who actually made the presentation on the opening of the study session. And usually it was the senior leaders who would do that. So we would say the program opener in Khmer. And as I said, it's been so long already, it's almost 40 years, so I can recall such a detail.
In your OCIJ interview, you said that the teachers on the political courses were Nguyen Chea and Khieu Samphan. I'd like you to concentrate first, please, on Nguyen Chea. At these study sessions, what did he talk about?
I think I answered twice already regarding the political study session. Nuon Chea and Kirsampon taught us during the political study sessions, focusing on those themes that I said on the economization and on strengthening or working hard. They did not teach us on doing anything bad at all, as I can recall it clearly, that we should strive to work hard in order to build the country. And that is the real situation at that time, and that was the truth, as I can recall it clearly. And since then, in my mind, in my communication or liaison with the people, I always focus on the good point or positive point, and that has been indoctrinated in my mind that I should only do good act to other people and not a bad act, and to help them if needed. Maybe my response is rather long, but that is the truth.
Mr. Chirsai, is your memory that Nuon Chea and Khieu Samphan were covering the same sort of subjects or different subjects?
បាទ
The two, we can say the two came from the same family. They spoke on the same subject matters. In short, they talk about the points that I just raised because they are from the same team. Or you can say from members of the same family. They are from the same party if you refer to the current situation. So the political education is the same.
Try and help me on this if you can. If there was a study session, or you said that study sessions lasted at least 3 days, what portion of those 3 days would be taken up with the addresses by Nuon Chea and Khieu Samphan?
A response. Could you please repeat your question? Please be more specific in the question, because I find it difficult to respond to, as it's rather broad.
That's my fault, Mr. Chirsai, not yours. Let me simplify the question. How long would Nuon Chea speak for?
Response. Mr. Nuon Chea and Mr. Khieu Samphan talked during the 3 days or the 4-day workshop, or rather training sessions. And these people were the senior leaders, so they could have been in the sessions longer than the other low-level cadre. So they were there to tell us, to educate us on how to work very well. The President: thank you, Mr. Witness, and thank you, Mr. Co-Prosecutor. It is now appropriate moment for the morning adjournment. The Chamber will adjourn for 20 minutes. The next session will be resumed by 10 to 11, rather by 10. 10 to 11. The court is adjourned.
សូមអញ្ជើញក្រោកឈរ